The Running Man was a pretty big disappointment. Outside of Glenn Powell's performance as Ben Richards and Coleman Domingo's performance as Bobby Thompson, the movie really didn't make very many good decisions. The charisma of those two is really what gets you through the movie, but it's got serious pacing issues, pretty cringe dialogue, and it lacks all of the charm from the 80s version that while I think is not a very good movie, it is very stylized. It's a pretty fast-paced movie, and you get a pretty good look at the world very quickly, which at the time at least seemed different than the real world. This movie kind of made the mistake of going for the more grounded, realistic type thing. So you essentially end up with a generic city from our current day with a little bit more technology. The movie completely wasted a pretty big cast. You had Josh Brolin as Dan Killian, Michael Cera made an appearance, William H. Macy made a very brief appearance, and none of them are utilized at all. The character of Amelia, who had a very big part in the 1980s version, doesn't even show up until the last 30 minutes of this movie, and her role is really unnecessary other than to give Ben Richards time to give a lecture about classism that felt really heavy-handed to me. And overall, the movie very easily could have been half an hour shorter, and it just felt really sterile. I've also heard it referred to as blue balls the movie, because every time the pace picks up, it immediately grinds to a halt again. He's just kind of sitting in a hotel. I think that's a pretty fair analysis. The amount of plot armor and contrivances he has are just out the ass. And then, of course, there's the general irony of Hollywood lecturing about the institutions being propagandized when Hollywood is nothing but a propaganda machine at this point. The latter half of the movie kind of dips its toe into being pretty Antifa friendly. Severely disappointing. Let's just get into it. The main plot is you have a world where the company pretty much has all the wealth and everyone else is living in slums. It kind of felt like Ready Player One was inspired by this. Ben Richards can't keep a job because he's short-tempered. He's got a sick daughter. And I think just cutting out the amount of times that he says he's fighting for his daughter, you could have saved like 15 minutes in this movie. He must say it like 40 times. It's literally in every single fight. We get some kind of speech about his daughter and how much he loves her. And that's all fine and dandy the first few minutes. It's his motivation. We get it. But this movie just beats you in the face with it. And for a movie that's over 2 hours, you really want to cut time where you can. And that repetition is absolutely one of the points that you could cut. Anyway, he's trying to get a new job. There's a bunch of different game shows that are lower risk than The Running Man. I thought that was one of the smart things the show actually did was have him say, of course, he's not going to do that one because no one ever wins. And then he tries to get into a different game show and ends up on The Running Man anyway. So he ends up on The Running Man. And the first thing he does is go talk to his friend Molly, who's William H. Macy. So he gets disguised and goes into a hotel. And his plan seems to be to just hole up there. But as he gets more paranoid and realizes that they can find him whenever they feel like, he extends his stay there and then goes to hide somewhere else. And at this point, the movie says, let's do some fan service for the ladies, but that shit is not allowed for the men. So he showers at this new kind of slummy apartment and for whatever reason just starts walking around in a towel. And of course, this is when the hunters show up. So he gets to show off running around in a towel, hanging on the side of a building. His towel comes off. I don't know if he has a butt double. Maybe Joey Tribbiani was doing stand-in. And this opening scene kind of embodies the entire problems of the movie, where he gets extremely lucky to not get shot over and over. There's bullets everywhere and he's running just down narrow hallways. The hunters are all just generic masked men. And then he just kind of gets lucky to escape. Like he's sort of resourceful, but also just very, very lucky throughout the movie. And of course, after he does get out of this building and it blows up and he gets blamed, he runs into a kid whose older brother happens to be some elite hacker dude pushing back on the company. And all the support that he has undermines the whole point. In the first movie, Arnold was viewed as evil. Everyone was on board with the company. They're all bought into this. When he kills the first hunter, there's like a moment of silence and it's tragic and it's a huge surprise. And in this movie, it's more like society is on the cusp of revolution anyway. So he just gets help throughout the movie. And then instead of us getting to see action, when he leaves this place, he sits in the trunk of the car and that's pretty much all we see. So you get this weird thing where he's sitting around dinner tables, sitting in hotel rooms, holed up in bunkers, and the action is like kind of rushed, and then you're back to just sitting. It's a very weird structure for the movie. So the guy Bradley sends him to a friend, also a revolutionary, Michael Cera, whose name is Elton in the movie, who wants him to pre-record all of his tapes and then just go hide in the bunker. And him winning would be a message to the company that they don't have as much power or dominance as they think they do. And instead, His grandma sees Ben Richards after one day, wants to turn him in. Elton says no, and then decides that he wants to kill some cops and hits the alarm anyway. This is also where we get a nod to Che Guevara and the anarchy symbol that Antifa uses. And this is sort of a problem with the movie lacking style, as the original was supposed to be 30 years in the future. It felt like a different place from the 80s. It felt dystopian. This movie seems to want it to feel like a current day commentary, so it just makes it our world, and that makes it much harder to disconnect the politics and what you're trying to push in the movie. So we get to watch like adult Home Alone. Elton fucks up a bunch of these cops. He ends up getting killed. Ben spares a hunter as him and Elton, who's been stabbed, are trying to escape until they run into a helicopter, and that hunter wants to kill Ben even though he let him go. Elton gets sniped, and then Ben blows up the bridge and runs away. And now, because the viewership is high, he's kind of being sided with by Killian, or at least getting support, because they want the ratings up. So they're okay with the ratings being high and Ben living as long as he brings in good TV ratings, which is all a fine commentary on the current state of media and journalism and all that stuff. And Coleman Domingo does a great job having a lot of fun with that character who's kind of promoting all this bullshit. At this point, Ben hijacks Amelia, lectures her about her scarf, and tries to make her feel bad for being wealthy. They get let through to a plane. Dan tries to make a deal with Ben to kill all the hunters, and then he'll have his own TV show, and he'll be the new hunter, blah, blah, blah. Ben turns him down, kills all the hunters anyway, and then he keeps promising Killian that he's going to get to him. And at the end of the movie, they do kind of overthrow the company on set. The audience starts throwing Molotov cocktails. They're dressed in very Antifa-esque outfits. And as he shoots Josh Brolin in the head, the movie ends. Absolute insanity for the pacing. All the side characters just kind of come and go, except for Elton, who died. It just feels like a movie that wasted a lot of time, and at the same time didn't give particularly compelling action scenes. The characters are still kind of one note, even the ones that we spend a lot of time with. Having it spread out over a month means you have a lot of downtime you have to fill. And I think that really creates a lot of issues when you know the game is rigged and they can just find them whenever they want. But you just end up with a really inefficient movie that lacks any kind of real style or fun that the 80s version had. I think a much better structure might have been just like 3 or 4 big action set pieces. You just show a count with the days on there and just do little time skips. We don't need to watch him sit in a hotel. We don't need to watch him have dinner with characters we don't care about. You know, just show him dressed up, maybe little montages of him dropping his tapes off that are required every day in different locations, and move on. The movie easily could have been half an hour shorter, maybe even more. The character of Amelia shouldn't have been in the movie at all, frankly. She was the romance part of the 80s one, but in this one, we start with him being married already. And in the original one, she turned him in and then felt guilty about it when she realized how blatantly the news was lying. So she had her whole own thing going on there, where this one literally just shows up to be a plot device, gets sucked out of the plane with a parachute, and we just don't see her again. She really adds nothing other than a kind of lecture or guilt trip for people who have wealth and not giving it all away. So yeah, this movie was really disappointing. I was looking forward to it. I like Glenn Powell. I wish someone could get this man a good fucking script. His charisma and Coleman Domingo's really were the only thing that kept this movie at like lower tier mid instead of just disaster. And this one also bombed at the box office, so I expect it won't have too many defenders. Just another remake that no one asked for. That's just a newer, more expensive, more inept version of the previous one. Just really a bummer. I'm gonna leave it there for this one. If you've seen it, run to the comments and let me know what you think. I try to respond to comments that aren't just insults. Like and subscribe and all that shit. Thanks. See ya.